We'll put football on the back burner right now just for a little bit. Eagles get the victory yesterday over the Rams. You had the Temple football team. They'll come up this Saturday for homecoming up against Tulsa. But now we'll switch to the MLB front, and we have an MLB Hall of Fame pitcher on the hotline. In addition to, he won 300-plus games with the Atlanta Braves and New York Mets. And also, let's not forget that he was a World Series MVP, and that is Tom Glavine. Tom, Zach, and Chase here in Philly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Well, Tom, we're doing great, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. And the last time we had you on the air was right when that announcement came out that you were heading to Cooperstown. And the last time we actually talked was the day of induction day when you went into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So just take a look back, recap that day for us.
Well, it was an unbelievable experience. I guess the question that everybody always asks me is, did it meet your expectations, exceed your expectations? And I guess my answer has been it exceeded my expectations, although I really didn't know what to expect other than it was going to be a fantastic day. So, it was obviously a ton of fun going in with the guys that I went in with, and the kind of day that certainly you're honored to be a part of. Don't ever really anticipate or expect that when you're playing, but it happened, and it certainly was an unbelievable experience, not only being inducted, but certainly being around all those other Hall of Famers as well, and kind of being put into that class. It was a pretty unbelievable experience.
That day definitely was well-deserved, especially with your illustrious postseason career. Moving to this year's postseason, Dodgers and Cardinals, that series is tied at 1 game apiece following the Matt Kemp home run. Clayton Kershaw, though, going back to Game 1, got shelled in that 7th inning, and many people were wondering if his pitches were being tipped. You've seen a lot of baseball. Did you see anything that made you think that his pitches were actually being tipped?
I don't know. I think when somebody gets hit like that, the natural reaction is that, well, you think they're tipping something or the other team had something. And, I guess there's something to that. But I think from Clayton's standpoint, it's got to be more, look at it, try to decide, hey, did I execute my game plan? Did I make my pitches? When I missed my spots, did they take pitches better than they should have? So I think you kind of look for a lot of those reactions from the hitter. But then again, I think you have to have an honest assessment of yourself and decide whether or not you executed your game plan. Certainly up until that point in time, it didn't seem as though Clayton was tipping his pitches because he was dominating up until that point in time. And then, all of a sudden, everything went haywire. But I think as a pitcher, like I say, you make that assessment, you look at things, you maybe look at the tape, see if maybe there might be something to it. But to me, I think it has to start with, well, did I or did I not execute my pitches? And if you didn't, it really doesn't matter tipping your pitches. If you're not executing, nothing's going to work anyway.
There's no question that he's the best pitcher in baseball when talking about Clayton Kershaw, and for me, he's my vote for the NL MVP. But in his concise postseason career, he's 1-4 with the 5.20 ERA. If you could sit down and talk to Clayton, what advice would you give to him about pitching in the big stage and the MLB postseason?
Well, look, I think it just goes to show you how hard it is to pitch in the postseason, and some guys don't fare as well in the regular season, but they're really good in the postseason. Other guys are really good in the regular season and maybe don't fare as well in the postseason. I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to it, but, what I would say to Clayton if I had the conversation would be just be yourself, do your thing. I think more than anything else, when you get into those situations, particularly in a postseason, and everybody starts harping on what you're doing wrong or how uncharacteristic your numbers are, look, we're human beings. We know that. We hear that. We see it. And our natural inclination is to go out there and try and do something about it. But the problem is that you go out there and try and do things maybe you're not capable of or you shouldn't be trying to do, and you put too much pressure on yourself. So, to me, it's about just relax and get back to doing what you do well and make that the focus of your game plan. And I think he's shown over the course of the last couple of years that the foundation of his game plan and what he does well is pretty darn good. So just stick with that.
Hall of Fame pitcher Tom Glavine joins us right now, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here with you, taking you up until noon Eastern time. And Tom, we've seen time and time again that these teams that get hot at the end of the year often make deep postseason runs, and the Kansas City Royals are the perfect example of that. They're playing small ball and have a wonderful mixture of starting pitching with the relief pitching, and they're getting the big hits at the right time. Eric Hosmer is just having a coming out party. How about the job that Ned Yost Ball Club is doing?
Well, look, they've done a great job over there all year long, and they're a ball club that, I think if you're a baseball historian a little bit, or certainly a baseball fan, you knew Kansas City was in the mix, and they were doing well, and it was a nice little story. But I think now in this postseason, you're getting really to see what that team is and how they're constructed, and it really kind of reminds me a lot of the old Kansas City ball club that was perennially a playoff team and World Series champion, and some of those Cardinal teams back in the days that were built around speed. Those guys just wreaked havoc on the base pass. They played great defense. Somehow here in the postseason, they've discovered the long ball, which certainly was not much a part of their terms of success, so to speak, during the regular season. But they're a fun team to watch, and like I say, it kind of harkens back to the day of the AstroTurf, where it was put the ball in play and run like hell and put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. That's kind of their style of play, and it's fun to watch. But like I say, I think it's the kind of thing that most of the people in the country had no idea who these guys were or how good they were, and now they're showing it. But I think Ned did a great job over there, and again, it's just another one of those things. It seems to be a point of discussion every year, a debate as to whether you want to be the team that clinches early and is well rested going into the postseason, or the team that has to fight for their lives. Certainly, Kansas City was the team that had to fight for their lives, and that seems to be serving them very well because they had to play a ton of close games down the stretch, and they have their confidence. There's no question about that.
We've seen a handful of some really good games this MLB postseason so far, and we're only about one round in, especially that game on Friday between the Giants and the Nats, or on Saturday, rather, as it went 18 innings, the longest game in postseason history. A big part of that ball game is when Matt Williams elected to take Jordan Zimmerman out of the game. I think he was only under 100 pitches, and he had been cruising into that game. He obviously ended the regular season with a no-hitter. What'd you think of Williams' decision on that play?
I don't know. I didn't see it at the time, but look, I mean, I think anytime you make a decision like that and it doesn't work out, you're going to get second guessed. But look, I don't know. We don't know what the situation was with Zimmerman. In this day and age, the way baseball is played now, it's almost automatic that you're going to go to your bullpen late in the game like that and try to ride the horses on the back end. And it's a formula that everybody follows now, and the teams that are successful follow it, and their guys on the back end do a great job. So, when you've got a solid bullpen at the end of a game, I'd be hard-pressed to argue against sending a starting pitcher out there for, to flip the lineup for the fourth time if you can bring in somebody who's going to be throwing 95, 98 miles an hour and it's a new look. That's just the way of the game nowadays. So it's hard to criticize it because that's what everybody's doing. But like I said, it certainly opens you up for criticism when it doesn't work.
The Nats battled the Giants in Game 1. That resulted in a loss. They go 18 innings with the Giants on Saturday. That resulted in a loss. They've really gone back and forth with the Giants, but they've been on the wrong side both times. That plane ride to San Francisco had to be a long one. Where do you think the Nationals' confidence is right now as a team?
Well, I mean, I think more than anything, when you lose an 18-inning game, it's a little bit demoralizing. Even if it was the kind of thing that if you lost and it would still make the series 1-1, it's still when you're out there that long and you lose, you kind of have that sense of, oh God, just through all that and we lost. So there's always a little bit of a demoralizing effect to it. But certainly in Washington's case, look, they're to say they're behind the eight ball obviously is an understatement, and coming off the heels of a loss like that, it's even worse. So they've got to find a way to just go out to San Francisco and try and win a game. Try and get that one win and give themselves another opportunity. Obviously it's hard this time of year to win 3 games in a row, and it seems like a daunting task when you start to think of it in those terms. got to look at it one day, one game, and they got to find a way to win today's game to give themselves a shot at having another one, and then go from there. So, you just got to forget about what's happened and why you are where you are, and try and figure out a way to win a game and prolong your season.
A few more with the Hall of Fame pitcher Tom Glavine, 10-time All-Star, World Series champion in 1995, was the World Series MVP. Also won 2 NL Cy Young Awards in 91 and 98. Tom, just staying with there, I know when you were with the Braves, you guys went up against the Mets in the Robin Ventura Grand Slam single game. That went 15. What are the emotions just in the dugout when you go through one of those long, rigorous postseason games?
Well, like I said, it's draining. But, those aren't fun to go through during the regular season when you lose. They're really tough to go through in the postseason when you lose. It's emotionally, it's a draining game. When you look at the outcome of the game, it's usually, no matter what, it's usually a big swing. You look at this San Francisco series. You're talking the difference between a 1-1 series versus a 2-0 series, and it, every game kind of has that magnitude when you're in a short series. So, any loss is a big swing one way or the other, but particularly when it's an extra inning affair like that, like I said, there's a different demoralizing effect to it when it's an extra inning affair, and particularly that one when you go 18 innings. So again, it's the kind of thing that they're tough to go through, but that's the nature of the postseason. Is you really gotta have a short memory and forget about what happened previously, and just put all your focus on trying to go out there that next game and get a win and get things back in your favor.
Getting back to the Royals, Ned Yost was a bullpen coach for those Brave teams that you were on. What did you learn from Ned Yost throughout your career? What kind of manager is he?
Well, you know what? Ned was a big help to me even before that. The Braves signed him when I was in Double-A baseball. He got released by Milwaukee, and they signed him to come down there and catch me and Pete Smith and a couple other prospects that were there. And, he probably gave me the best advice that I got from a catcher along the way, because at that time I was throwing a forkball as my changeup, and I thought it was the greatest pitch in the world. And he pretty succinctly told me that it was terrible, and I needed to learn how to throw a changeup. So, that was good advice. It certainly served me well throughout the course of my career. But look, Ned's a disciple of Bobby Cox. He spent a lot of time with Bobby. He learned from Bobby, and I think his managing style is similar to what Bobby did all those years in Atlanta. I think he treats his guys with respect. He has certain expectations out of them all in terms of what their jobs are and what their responsibilities are on any given day. And he puts those guys in positions where they can succeed. And I think from a manager standpoint, that's the best you can do is give your guys the sense that every one of them is important, that they're all going to be counted on, and I'm going to count on you in situations that I think you can be successful in, not put you in situations where I think you've got a better chance to fail. And players love playing for managers like that.
In the last few years, the Angels have went out and they've won in the offseason. They bring in Josh Hamilton. They have Mike Trout. They also brought in Albert Pujols. And that group has been able to put together postseason wins. How does Mike Scioscia fix that ship in Los Angeles and get them to a World Series? Because they should be in World Series contention with that roster that they put out there on the field.
Man, it's a good question. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert on the Angels, but I think if you look at that team and you go position by position, there's not a ton of places where you think that, man, we could be a whole lot better at this position or at this spot in our lineup. I mean, they're pretty solid from top to bottom, and they certainly proved that over the course of the 162 game schedule. But that's the difference in the postseason. And that was kind of the knock was on us in Atlanta for a lot of years, is that we were, a team that was built for 162, but not necessarily for that playoff type format. And it's tough. As much as you might want to look at your team and say, well, we need to construct ourselves to be better suited for that short series, those short playoff series. Guess what? You got to play well over 162 to give yourselves a shot at that postseason atmosphere and environment. So it's a tough balancing act, but look, I mean, the Angels certainly really a solid team, and I think a team that most people were picking to be in the World Series. But again, I think it just speaks to how difficult not only the grind of the regular season is, but how difficult and how different the postseason environment is too. Because more times than not, I think we see teams that are surprises in the postseason than seeing that team that everybody thinks is going to win the World Series, and then they go run the table. It just shows you how hard it is.
Before we let you run real quickly, as we're talking to Tom Glavine, ALCS, it's the Royals and the Orioles. Who are you picking? Who do you like to get to the World Series from the AL side?
Oh, man. I think both teams obviously have been a surprise in different ways. But, I guess just out of pure loyalty and my ties with Ned, I got to root for the Royals, and I'd pick them.
Well, Tom, enjoy the rest of your week. We appreciate a few minutes today. Thanks so much. Once again, congratulations on finally getting inducted into the Hall of Fame on your first try, 91.9%. We appreciate the time. Always fun to talk to you.
My pleasure, you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Tom.
Tom Glavine right there, the Hall of Fame pitcher, joining us on the hotline. Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Always fun to talk to a Hall of Famer, and Tom Glavine is definitely deserving of that. But that's interesting because you have a team like the Angels, and you look at their roster, and you would say, hey, they should get to the World Series or at least the ALCS almost every year. And the first 2 years, bringing in those big-time players, and Mike Scioscia has won before with the Angels. Just ask Barry Bonds. They go out there. They didn't get to the postseason, and then this year you have a chance. You're in the postseason. You're in the dance. You have a chance to go home with the prom queen, and you lay an egg. And you're the best team in baseball, and you couldn't get a win up against a wild card team. I love that Kansas City team. I hope they get to the World Series.
Love the grit that they show, but it just goes to show that money doesn't buy championships all the time.